It was an era of chaos. The 5 great houses clashed in a brutal war to seize the vacant throne. Lands were invaded, villages plundered, and countless lives lost. So much innocent blood was shed that it provoked the wrath of God. In his fury, he cursed the 5 families, and thus began the division of all beings into alphas and omegas. From that time forth, the 5 houses gathered routinely to foster unity, hosting hunting competitions and offering their spoils as tribute to the heavens. Yet this year's unification gathering stirred unusual curiosity. The first house, renowned for its rigid tradition of never allowing an omega to rule, was rumored to have crowned one as its new leader. And to complicate matters, the infamous alpha heir of the second house, Kairo, had declared he would attend, despite the long-standing friction between their bloodlines. "Why the sudden change of heart?" someone asked, surprised. "I never thought you'd walk in so willingly. Have you finally decided to accept your responsibilities as head of your house?" The carriage rattled to a stop. Kairo stepped down with a smirk, dismissing the thought. Responsibility? Not a chance. Welcomed by attendants, his eyes searched for only one person, the head of the first house. Kairo. The voice, smooth and rich, stilled the air. Skin pale as porcelain, hair dark as midnight, she was beauty and grace embodied, her very name etched into her presence. Onyx. "It's been a long time, Onyx," Kairo murmured, his words low, almost intimate. She held his gaze, unflinching. Kairo smirked. "Now that you're head of the house, should I call you Lady Onyx? I see you're still the same as ever. I thought you might have changed, even a little. But it seems people don't change so easily." Kairo's smirk deepened. "I found that people change quite easily, just as you did." Their banter carried the weight of rivalry. The second house had never once defeated the first in the hunting competition, and Onyx, with a polite smile, offered her best wishes for Kairo to uphold that record. "It's good to see you so full of spirit," Kairo replied, stepping closer. "You can't imagine how concerned I was." His hand brushed against her neck as he leaned in, voice dropping low. "I hope you'll look forward to what I'll be catching in tomorrow's hunt." Pressing gently against her neck, his lips curved into a dangerous smile. She swatted his hand away and turned sharply, leaving with her teeth clenched. "Are you all right, my lady?" her attendant asked softly. Onyx had always held her poise, even in the hardest situations, but the hunt seemed to weigh heavier than usual. "This is about Kairo, isn't it? You need to stay cautious around him. There's evidence your uncle has been making deals with him behind closed doors." Onyx voiced "My uncle, did?" "Yes, and word has it he even put the ownership of the western region on the table. Fertile, prosperous land, as valuable to him as the title of head itself." Onyx's breath caught. His sided with the senior council to strengthen their opposition against an omega leading the house. A silence stretched while Onyx thought, "I know what you're planning to hunt tomorrow." "It's me." It was as if the reel of time spun backward. Onyx's mind drifted to the memories she had long tried to bury, Kairo joking around with her, running with Kairo as the rain poured, the two of them laughing breathlessly. She remembered the night they danced in the banquets, their steps clumsy but their hearts in perfect rhythm. When her parents died, it was his hand she clung to, the warmth of his grip pulling her back from despair. And then, as grief blurred into longing, things had escalated, the stolen kisses, the lingering touches, and the unspoken bond that tethered them tighter than either dared admit. At the banquet, the laughter and chatter blended with the music, but Onyx's world froze when Kairo's voice cut through the noise. He was surrounded by a group of nobles. "Me and Onyx, get married." Kairo scoffed, his tone sharp enough to slice through her composure. "As if that would ever happen. Don't be preposterous." The day of the hunt dawned crisp and tense. Kairo stood beside Onyx, softly humming. Onyx's thoughts clouded with irritation. The scent again. She had been forced to take suppressants just the night before because of it. "Onyx, you're not looking too well," Kairo observed smoothly. "Mind your own business," she snapped back. "You can't really afford to be distracted." Kairo only smiled. "And why not? This is just a competition between friends." Onyx's grip tightened around her gun. "Just a competition between friends?" She bit back her bitterness and said coldly, "Maybe you should do something about that indecent scent of yours," before mounting her horse. For the first time, Kairo faltered. "My scent?" he thought, sniffing himself in disbelief. His eyes drifted across the field, and there, watching him with a sly curve to his lips, was Onyx's uncle. The knowing smirk unsettled Kairo, sparking a dangerous question in his mind. The jungle was alive with the sharp trill of birds and the whisper of leaves, broken only by the crack of gunfire echoing through the trees. Onyx and Kairo rode side by side, cutting through the wind with practiced ease, their weapons raised, their rivalry palpable in every shot. Each time the first house landed another score, murmurs rippled through the hunting ground. The lead was theirs again. But for Onyx, this wasn't about tradition or points. Her jaw was tight, her gaze unwavering. This is no friendly competition, she reminded herself. I won't sit idly by and let him take whatever he's after. Each pull of the trigger was driven by defiance, her determination burning hotter than the sun above. Kairo, just a pace behind, huffed under his breath. I can't decide if she's being foolishly childish or dangerously adorable. The moment shifted when his eyes lingered on her. Her complexion, usually luminous with fierce energy, had gone pale, too pale. His chest tightened as realization flickered. Onyx, he called out, voice rough with alarm. The strength left her body in an instant, and she tumbled from her horse. The world in front of her went blank. Her lashes fluttered as she slowly regained consciousness, the blurred outlines around her sharpening into the face of her anxious attendant. Lady Onyx, he whispered urgently, steadying her shoulders. Wait, don't try to get up. The competition. What happened? It's been called off, the attendant replied softly. Her heart sank. I was in heat, but confusion clouded her thoughts. I took the suppressant yesterday. So why? The attendant hesitated, guilt darkening his expression. It wasn't a suppressant, my lady. It was an inducer. I believe your uncle orchestrated this. Onyx froze, anger flashing behind her pale eyes. A new low, even for him. Do people know about my condition? She asked sharply. The attendant shook his head. No, we should be relieved. No one got close enough. He made sure of that. Onyx pressed. The attendant lowered his voice. I mean, Kairo. He was the one who gave strict orders for everyone to keep their distance. And when you collapsed, he carried you back himself. A pause, then a hesitant addendum. However, now Kairo has become, his words trailed off, heavy with unspoken weight. Kairo sat alone, his chest rising and falling in uneven breaths. Huffing, he clenched his fists as memories surged. Onyx, younger but unshaken, clutching his hand after her parents' deaths. I'm going to become the head of the first house, Kairo. Even then, she had stood tall, radiating an unwavering dignity that set her apart. But another memory intruded, sour and bitter. The banquet, the mocking words he'd tossed so casually. He thought it absurd, the idea of binding her with the shackles of marriage. How could he? When she was someone he admired, someone who seemed far above being caged. His voice cracked into the empty room, low and bitter. What was I to you, Onyx? Just a plaything when you were bored? Or a nuisance that stood in your way? He exhaled sharply, the words stinging even as they left his lips. That sums it up, doesn't it? The sharp bang on the door jolted Kairo out of his spiraling thoughts. His head snapped up, tension tightening in his chest. Let me in. From the other side came a soft, steady voice that made his heart falter for just a moment. Kairo. The gifts Onyx's uncle had sent to Kairo were draped in politeness and so-called good faith, but the intention behind them was so transparent it was almost laughable. Sitting through the man's endless chatter, Kairo found himself growing bored. First it was his pleas to prevent an Omega from taking the seat of power, and now he was shamelessly conspiring against Onyx. But Kairo saw through it clearly. He's trying to use me, but I'll never let him meddle in Onyx's life. His mind snapped back to the sight of her lying unconscious on the hunting grounds, the pale fragility that had shaken him to his core. The memory made his jaw clench. It was never my intention to be part of a scheme so vile, so unsavory. And when her uncle pressed one step too far, Kairo's restraint broke. His fist connected sharply with the man's jaw, the sound ringing louder than words. The blow erupted into a storm of heated arguments, voices raised, accusations hurled, but Kairo stood firm, his fury clear. I won't allow this. Not to her. The door creaked open slowly, and there she was, Onyx, framed by the dim light of the corridor. Kairo, she called softly. It didn't take her long to realize the truth. He was deep in rut. Kairo's breath came uneven, ragged. Are you satisfied seeing me like this? In this miserable state? Why don't you leave, before it's too late? But Onyx only pressed her lips together, her eyes unwavering. I'm not going anywhere. Stepping closer, she gripped his collar and pulled him down to her level, her voice firm, trembling only with emotion. I won't run away from you. The door clicked shut behind them, leaving only silence broken by the sound of their heavy, uneven breathing. Finally, Onyx broke it. Her voice was low but demanding. What were you thinking, Kairo? Why do you insist on suffering alone? Why didn't you tell me you were in rut? Kairo's gaze wavered, his composure cracking as he muttered, Don't stand so close. Her eyes widened. You're in rut because of me, aren't you? Why let it get this far? Kairo's voice dropped, strained but resolute. What do you think people would have said if I'd gone asking for suppressants, after carrying you back to your room? Onyx's brows furrowed, her voice sharp with frustration. What does that have anything to do with this? He gave a humorless laugh. I'm curious. Are you really that oblivious? Or is it that you don't want to know? His breath came ragged, every word edged with strain. Finally, his control cracked. Just leave. I can't hold back any longer. But Onyx stood her ground, her gaze steady. Fine, she said firmly, then don't. Kairo's eyes widened, shock breaking through the haze. What? She closed the distance between them, her hand still gripping his collar, her voice low and unyielding. I want to know why you came here. What kind of deal you made with Herod. And why? You saved me? She wrapped her arms tightly around him, and for a moment, Kairo forgot how to breathe. Her whole body, it feels like it's burning. That look in her eyes, the way she trembles in my arms, it's enough to drive me insane. His control shattered like glass. With a low growl, he pressed his lips against hers, pulling her into an intense, hungry kiss. The fabric of her dress slipped easily down her shoulder, bearing the delicate curve of her skin. He pressed his lips there, kissing, grazing, savoring, her warmth sinking into him deeper with every touch. Her skin, softer than anything I've ever known. And that scent, sweet lilies, heady and intoxicating, everywhere I breathe it in, my head spins harder. How have I managed to restrain myself this long? Her body twitched beneath his touch, her voice trembling as she whispered his name, Kairo. He pulled back just enough to lick his lips, his gaze hooded, his voice low and taunting. Do you honestly think I'm capable of stopping now? The thin layer of reason peeled away, leaving nothing but raw, undeniable desire. Onyx tugged at the chain around his neck, pulling him closer. I never told you to stop. In that instant, his heart ached with more than lust. It was the fierce, aching longing to carve a place within her heart, and remain there forever. The heat between them was undeniable, every breath heavy with longing. I meant, that's enough of what you're doing. I want you inside me now. I felt that way for what feels like forever. Kairo froze. A flush rose to his cheeks, and he let out a shaky, almost disbelieving laugh. Your wish is my command. Onyx's eyes softened, though desire still glimmered there. She leaned in for another searing kiss, as though it carried every unspoken feeling they had buried until now. Against his lips, her breathless words spilled out, I don't know how I ended up falling for a troublemaker like you. Her confession hitting him harder than he expected. You're the one I want. His hold shifted, enveloping her from behind, his chest pressed firmly against her back. The closeness made her shiver, her body trembling under the intensity of both his presence and his words. Leaning closer, his breath tickled her ear, low and hushed. I like you. His heart was pounding so hard it felt like it might break through his chest. Onyx. That was all it took. The hatred that had tangled them, the sharp yearning they tried to bury, the misunderstandings that had built walls, and all the explanations left unsaid, everything melted into nothing in the face of those 3 words. Onyx's lips parted. Me too, she whispered, her voice soft. Then, as if the dam had finally broken, she smiled, bright, unguarded, overflowing with affection. I like you too. 1 year later. The hurried sound of footsteps echoed down the corridor before Kairo burst into Onyx's office, his brows drawn and voice sharp. Onyx, don't you think you're being too cruel? Her tone cool but laced with faint amusement. What is it this time? Kairo scoffed. This time? I told you to wake me up early. Why didn't you? Because you were sleeping so peacefully. I didn't have the heart to disturb you. It's you who's too busy for peace. Amber told me you skipped lunch again. I just had something that needed my attention. A lot had changed in the last year. All of Herod's misdeeds finally came to light, and ultimately, he was driven out of the house. Even the senior council, once so rigid and unyielding, chose to relinquish much of their authority. For the first time in generations, there was an opportunity to confront and dismantle the hidden discrimination that Omegas had long endured. Kairo would never admit it outright, but even he knew, the incident had worked in their favor. And in the end, it turned out for the best. I was talking about lunch, he muttered. Hold on, you want to do that now? Yes, Onyx whispered, stepping closer until he fell back onto the bed, her hands tugging at his shirt until it slipped open. Straddling him, she traced her fingers along his chest, her eyes soft yet burning with certainty. In the end, I got what I wanted most, she thought. He's someone who has the ability to make me feel, both vulnerable and invincible. The only one who can draw out sides of me I never knew existed, while also being the one I can bare my truest self to without fear. A tender smile curved on her lips as her gaze lingered on him. My Achilles heel, she whispered. Her fingers brushed the cool metal at her ankle, his chain, a silent claim, a bond they had chosen together. Her voice softened, reverent, and certain. My Kairo. Thank you for watching the video. Don't forget to subscribe for more such stories. See you next time.